Yeah, I think bidding wars are back.
Bidding wars. I love that term.
It's
It sounds
intimidating.
cool.
It does sound cool. I think it sounds cool for sellers, but for buyers, every buyer I talk to, they say, "I just want to make sure I don't get into a bidding war." Now, some of them are competitive and they don't mind it, but I think the majority of the buyers out there, when they start to think or have the idea of they would get into a bidding war, they get really nervous.
Oh yeah. Well, and I've had buyers ask me recently when we're doing our consultation, so how do you handle bidding wars? What's your strategy? Right. I've had sellers ask me that. What's your strategy when it comes to a bidding war? I'm like, how do you know we're going to get into a bidding war? I hope we get into a bidding war.
Yeah.
You can't predict it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, a couple of years ago, the pandemic years, 2020 to 2023, there's high probability that we're going to get into a bidding war.
Yeah, I had a buyer. We made 25 offers before we got one accepted back in like 2022.
Yeah.
And it made national news, and I was one of them. We were one of 54 offers on a house. And I heard them talking about it in national news. This is a house in Indiana that got 54 offers.
Yeah.
Like, that's not even fun for a seller.
No, and it's definitely not fun for an agent.
It's not fun for buyers, it's not fun for sellers, and it's not fun for agents.
Anyone.
And you do have to have a skill, I think, when it comes to a bidding war.
Yeah.
But I think that term should just go away. I mean, bidding wars make sense in the auction world.
I say at that point, just go auction the house. I mean, there's a lot of homes I feel like in that 2020 to 2023 years that should have been auctioned. They would have.
Yeah.
It would have been a smoother process. Probably would have gotten more money out of the home.
And buyers show up knowing they're getting into a bidding war.
Right.
Now it's like the other day, I showed a house, and I've been working with these buyers for a couple of weeks, and we're right here at the beginning of the spring market, and we're looking at a couple of houses. We spend all weekend looking at houses, and we're the only people walking through homes. And then all of a sudden this past weekend, other people are showing up with us, and they found a house. We wanted to make an offer on it. We're talking through it, and I'm just kind of sharing what I see in the market right now. And it could be competitive. We don't know yet. It's like playing poker.
Yeah.
Setting the expectation with clients can be difficult, and you got to have some kind of strategy to deal with it when you get into a competitive situation.
Well, I think you're right. The term bidding war should go away because it's really not a bidding war. Bidding wars are what you have when you're having an auction.
That's a bidding war.
And, being an auctioneer, I have been a part of several bidding wars. And how a bidding war actually happens is one person bids something, and then another person bids higher. And then they could, some people try to be real sly about it and not let the room know.
They wait for the last second and try to jump in. And
yeah, and so you're trying to strategically make an offer, and you're competing in the
live,
same room,
everybody's
live.
there. Yeah,
that's a bidding war.
Yeah.
In real estate, unless it's a real estate auction, you're not really doing that. It's, everybody makes their offers, and then some agents, another strategy that pops up from my experience, it's not the most fun way to do it, but you call for highest and best. And that's where you get several offers that come in, and then you put out a highest and best notice to all the other agents and go, hey, we got a lot of offers. Now's your opportunity to come in and up your offer if you want. Bring in a better price, change the terms and conditions. Now is your opportunity to do that. It's not a bidding war. It's
No.
You're being a mediator at that point and trying to find the best deal, best terms and conditions possible for your seller.
Well, and it doesn't always work out in a normal real estate situation. You've got to be careful as an agent out there, and buyers, you got to know this too. You can, as an agent, I think, try to create a bidding war and scare off the best buyer. I mean, I've done it. I have gotten the offers, and I've reached out, and I've tried to build up this bidding war anxiety and get multiple offers and then call for the highest and best. And a lot of times you'll scare off the best buyer.
And I've seen buyers back out because they just didn't want to deal with that.
Yeah.
You know,
And it's, they should just go to auctions and buy a house.
it should be. Yeah, auctions are
Why
fun.
aren't people auctioning off houses more, you think?
Well, I think it's just never been a thing.
Yeah, not in our market.
No, I mean, the United States doesn't really do real estate that way. And there's real estate auctions. You know, you heard of sheriff sales and auction sales, and that's where it's a true auction.
Yeah.
There's several auctioneers around town that will do estate auctions. Well, they'll auction off all the contents of the home and the home all in one day. You sell everything you own and the home, and it's a lot of fun, but there's not a lot of education. There's not a lot of information about it. I mean, if you were to
Maybe
go
that's it.
to go into a real estate auction, do you have any idea? I mean, you know, we know what we're doing because we've been in the auction world, but most buyers, there's not enough. You can't just get online and find out, you know, what do I got to do to be able to go into a real estate auction. Now, there's other parts of the world where they only auction off properties. Australia, that's 90% of the deals that happen there. That's all auctioned. Everybody shows up. They all bring their pre-approval letters. They all bring a down payment check, and whoever wins the house, they sign the paperwork right there, and they're going and closing on it pretty quickly.
But in there, I mean, at an auction, isn't there more fees involved for a buyer? I mean, you not only you might end up having to pay for your own agent because that's kind of a thing nowadays, but you also have the down payment. You got the closing costs. Then there's the buyer premium.
Yep. So
How much is a buyer premium in an auction situation?
it ranges. It really depends on the type of auction. It depends on the auction company. I've seen it as low as 5%. I've seen it as high as 20% for a buyer's premium.
Wow. So there's more fees sometimes for a buyer in an auction.
Well, kind of. If you're going in with a budget and you know I'm willing to pay $200,000,
Yeah.
well, just factor in your buyer's premium right there. Take 20% off the top, and then you know that I'm only going to go up to this number, and anything above that blows my budget.
Yeah.
And so but you know that going into it what the buyer's premium is. You know, that's the thing with real estate and getting into these bidding wars. You don't know what number it takes to win. You don't know what the terms and conditions are of all these other offers. Where at an auction, you know exactly what it is. The auctioneer's telling you, I have this as an offer, would somebody else like to offer this?
That's fine.
And I love that, but unfortunately, that's just not how the real estate's done here in the United States.
There's a new program or app or platform, I think it's called Upfront. Have you heard of this? Where they're going to basically kind of create almost like an online auction with these properties and allow buyers' offers to be fully exposed to all the other buyers out there. So everybody involved purchasing real estate knows where everybody's bids are at.
Yeah.
And I think that could be good for sellers. It could be good for buyers a little bit. But the downside, I think, for a seller is it's like, I say this all the time, it's like not like we're playing Price is Right. You can't go $1, Bob, on these people. You have no idea what the other offer is. And so it forces buyers to come in with their best offer. You know, if you, going back to talking about calling for highest and best, you know, and there's a strategy when you call for highest and best as an agent. And as a seller, you got to kind of know like what you're getting yourself into. And it just doesn't work, I think, the way that a lot of people feel like it should work. You have no idea what the other person's bidding. And there is a benefit to the seller because it's going to force people to bring their best offer and not just go $1 over the next offer.
Yeah.
But it's tricky.
It is. I mean, you know, we have a fiduciary duty to all of our clients, and part of that is to get them the best price, terms, conditions possible.
Yeah.
Well, when you don't know what these other offers are, I mean, I will call an agent if I know that there's multiple offers and try to get it out of them and, you know, try to find out what price is it going to take.
Yeah.
And I have called the other agent and told them, hey, you tell me what price the seller wants and I will go get that for you.
Yeah.
My clients are willing to do that. Some agents are very tight-lipped and they won't tell you much. Some agents will put it out there. But I think, you know, agents representing a seller, we have a fiduciary duty and we need to try to get them the best price, terms, conditions possible. I feel like we should disclose some of these terms and conditions, and maybe even the price to try to get the seller.
Yeah.
But it's not common. I mean, it's not how real estate's been done.
Yeah, that's not the strategy that they teach you in real estate school.
No.
And even in the listing contract, there's a section in there that us as agents have to ask the seller, will you or won't you allow me to disclose the existence of multiple offers? And then if you will you or won't you allow me to disclose the terms of each of those offers? Mm-hmm. And so I think as an agent representing a seller, you've got to somewhat have a strategy and be able to explain that to sellers. But for buyer's agents, this is where I think, Seth and I are old school. So we like to pick up the phone and we like to talk to other agents. And you and I have both, been in the situation where you call up an agent and asking him if they've got any other offers. And I can't tell you how many times I've called the other agent and they say, yeah, we've got multiple offers. We've got about 6 offers right now, but you're the only agent that's called me.
Yeah.
And so I said, great, and build up that relationship. I think as an agent representing a buyer, you've got to be skilled at picking up the phone, talking to the listing agent, getting as much information out of him as possible, but also building up some rapport with that other agent. A lot of these listing agents in our market, and a lot of the markets, those listing agents are some of the better, bigger agents that have been around for a while.
They've been doing it for a while.
They've got a good reputation. They've also been burned by bad agents. A lot of deals that fall through, sometimes it's the agent's fault.
Yeah.
And if you're an agent that is trying to play me versus you, and this is some sort of, a combative situation, as an agent that can play nice and be collaborative, those are the agents that are going to win in those bidding war situations for their buyers, more than the ones that think that they could come in and just strong arm people.
Oh yeah, I've helped clients get their offers accepted because I called them and not only did I say, hey, I'm really good at this and I know my clients really well. We're super easy to work with. We're going to make sure that we get to the closing table. Saying those kinds of things, and you got to be able to back it up.
Yeah.
You can't just kind of fluff that. That stuff it has a lot of weight when the seller knows. I mean, it's not all about price, terms, and conditions. It's how smooth of a transaction is this going to be?
Yeah.
And you can accept an offer that's, got the highest dollar amount, and they might not know anything about the home. They maybe in some situations never even seen the home.
Yeah.
And they walk in for the first time during that home inspection. They go, "Oh my God, this is what we offered on," and back out.
Yeah.
So, as a good listing agent, you want to make sure when you're accepting an offer that they know what they're buying. Ask them, hey, have you seen the home? Has their parents seen the home?
Yeah.
There's so many questions that you want to find. There's a lot of information you want to find out from these buyers to make sure that it's not only going to be a good deal for the seller, but make sure that it gets to the closing table.
Yeah, I think when you're representing sellers, you've got to look at the type of financing, which bank they're going with. There's a lot of other factors. Like you said, it's not just about the terms. But I think the one term, if you were out there, if you were a buyer trying to be competitive in a competitive situation, I think the biggest term is the possession date. I think sellers, we've worked with a lot of sellers, their number one fear is we're going to get a good offer, but then we got to get rushed to get out, in 21 or to 30 days. Mm-hmm. And I tell a lot of my clients when we sit down, we're going through the buyer consultation, imagine that seller who's 90 years old, who's raised all of her kids in the home. She's retired. She doesn't have the money to go pay for movers or pay for cleaners. There's a story that we were told, back in real estate school where, you always want to try to buy your seller a little bit of time after the closing before they can move out. There's the story of the old lady who moved all of her stuff into storage and then moved into an apartment complex and was ready to sell her house, and the buyer never showed up for closing. And she had to cancel the sale, pull all the stuff out of storage, move back into her rental property because she couldn't afford it. She needed the money from the sale.
Yeah.
So I think that in a competitive situation for buyers, being easier to work with on when do you get the keys, especially if you can be a little bit delayed in that after the closing, I think that goes a long way for buyers when they're in a competitive situation.
Yeah. There's some tips out there or some tricks out there for buyers when it comes to getting your offer accepted and you got multiple offers. The one trick that used to be around was the old love letters.
Oh, got to be careful with the love letter.
Can't do that anymore. I had a client ask me. She's like, "Can I send the seller a letter and just kind of explain to him, like,
Yeah.
tell him about myself and why I want the house so much."
Yeah.
And it has worked.
I've seen it work.
I've gotten
Yeah.
deals, offers accepted because of the letter.
Yeah.
But there's so many legal issues now and liability with just fair housing and all that stuff. If somebody found out that they didn't get their offer accepted because I don't even know if we're allowed to talk about it right now.
Who they were or what they did, even,
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to be careful. But here's what's really funny about the fair housing rule is sellers can't use, those love letters to be the determining factor in who they go with. But it doesn't say that the buyers can't still send them.
We just can't send them.
We just can't send them. And especially on the seller side, you can't show up with a bunch of love letters and then let's look and see who's who and try to, you can't do that as an agent. I will take them and I never look at the letter, but I'll at least listen to the agent and hear what they have to say about it. And I might, some sellers really care who's buying their house.
Oh yeah, especially if they've been there for a long time.
And so you can kind of have that conversation, but you really got to be careful with these love letters.
Yeah. I mean, I think when it comes to getting your offer accepted, it's some sellers want to know who's going into the home and they really want to pass on a good home to a good client, somebody's going to take care of the place, especially if they've been there for a long time. But for most sellers, they don't care about that stuff. It's how much money are they going to walk away with. Yeah. And that's majority of the time, that's what gets the offer accepted, is how much money is the seller going to make, and that's what they're looking at.
Yeah, and there's a couple strategies that we talk a lot about with especially our buyer clients. You've only got a couple strategies that you can implement when you get into a competitive situation. There's the going high over the asking price, which I tell people, us as listing agents try really hard to list the house at what we think it's going to appraise for. Mm-hmm. In most markets, where we're working, someone's going to come in and they're going to finance it. I think the statistic last year was it was almost 30% of buyers were cash, which is awesome. You can go, sky's the limit. There's no bank involved that tells you it's not worth it and you're not going to get the money for it. Mm-hmm. But the other, percentage of those buyers, they're using a mortgage and they are going to have an appraisal. And unfortunately, the appraisers are really the ones that dictate what the house is truly worth. So you can only go over asking price so much before it really doesn't make sense. So the strategy is if you are going to go over asking price, is to guarantee it somehow with the appraisal coverage, the appraisal gap language.
Yeah.
It basically says that if the home doesn't appraise for what we've agreed to, we'll make up some of that difference and promise that they're going to get more than whatever bank thinks that it's truly worth. The other strategy that I think works really well right now is the inspection cap. Sellers, I think their number one fear is they got to get out and they haven't gotten paid yet. Mm-hmm. But I think the second fear is they're going to get beat up on inspection and get nickel and dimed. And so how do you, on paper, say that we're not going to nickel and dime you as a seller?
Yeah, you got to put that in the purchase agreement. And the language I use is buyer agrees not to ask the seller for X amount of dollars for repairs, remediation, or renovations for any single inspection item that would come up on an inspection report.
Yeah, I call it like the inspection cap. That we're not going to ask you to fix anything. We cap it. We're not going to ask you to fix anything that costs less than a certain dollar amount. So all the little stuff, like the little plumbing leak, the dumb little electrical things, a little bit of peeling paint, that's not going to get asked for. But the big stuff's still in play. Mm-hmm. Sewer line's messed up. Furnace needs to be replaced. Roof is shot. All those big items can still be in play. The inspection cap strategy, I think, works really well for buyers right now.
It works really well, but I also feel like the buyer needs to be prepared for that. And a lot of this comes down to when you're walking through the home, being able to know what you're looking at. And a good agent, somebody that knows homes really well, should be able to go through the home pretty quickly and start to kind of total up, like, what are these costs, are the expenses going to look like for a buyer? Are we looking at a new roof, a new HVAC system, a new plumbing? I mean, you should be able to walk through a home and be able to get a pretty good idea. I mean, if you,
Well, it's easier for us because we kind of know what we're looking for.
That's true.
We've got 13 years of construction background and home inspection background
Yeah.
behind us. It's a little bit easier for us to walk through a house and point out all the things. To your point, I think it's all about setting the right expectation when you first start talking with the buyer. You know, I love what you say sometimes to buyers is, got a question for you in the consultation. How competitive would you say you are? You know, and one thing that I love to do, and I think a lot of agents should be doing this, is talk about your negotiation strategy and lay out all the layers of it. When I'm talking with even sellers and we're talking about how we're going to respond, or even with buyers when we're making our offer, I don't just talk about that initial first round of negotiating and talking back and forth. We'll plan out 3 or 4 different steps. You know, especially with a buyer, you want to try to get a property at a certain price. I mean, 101 of negotiating is you never really ask for what you want. You know, you come in at a lower price and try to work your way up to where you really want. So I think setting the right expectation for buyers, telling them the type of market that we're walking into, the type of property that you're looking for is pretty common, and we're in the average price point. And there's going to be a lot of buyers that are going to be gunning for that sort of property. And setting the expectation that, hey, we're going to go in, we're going to try to make a good, clean offer, and we're going to do a normal inspection, and we're going to do it this way. But just know, if that's the home that you really want, we might have to implement some of these different strategies. And that sets them up for success. And then they can kind of go out there, and it just dials back the anxiety, because anxiety comes from the things that we don't know. And being able to have that little bit of a game plan, I think, sets it up. You can go out there and have some fun knowing what you're going to get yourself into and how to negotiate that if you're in a competitive situation.
Yeah. I think you do the same thing that I do when you're representing a seller and you get multiple offers. Is I create a spreadsheet and I put all the details of every offer in there. That way we can sit down and really compare side by side what these offers are. How do you approach talking to a seller about multiple offers? Like, let's say you get 20 offers. Do you just flat out go, all right, guys, we got 20 offers? Or do you get together and sit down with them and kind of talk about what these offers are?
You know, legally, we're supposed to present any offer that we get. And when I get 20 offers, I will present all of them, but I'm not going to waste their time going through every single offer line by line. So I put everything into a spreadsheet, and I take everything into consideration, you know, not just the price, but are they asking for closing costs? What's the commission that we got to pay out to a buyer? Who's paying the closing fee? Who's paying for the title insurance? All that little stuff. And if you look down at the bottom after you do the math, who's going to net the most amount of money to the seller? So I kind of start with that. And then I have a conversation with them. I like sometimes going into the highest and best situation, but I will tell, and I know that sellers kind of love trying to create that bidding war.
Oh, yeah.
But if you've got an offer that has given you everything that you want, sometimes I just go take that offer and run with it. Don't try to put people into a bidding war, because sometimes you can scare off the right buyer, the best buyer. So you got to be kind of strategic with having a conversation with other agents and getting them to improve their offer in those situations. But I tee it up. You know, I don't just call up the seller and say, oh my God, we got 20 offers, and just start rattling off stuff. You know, a lot of times they're at work, or they got family, or they're in the middle of something. They need to be able to carve out a little bit of time. And in those situations, I'll send them information ahead of time, and I'll give them feedback along the way. I may even say, hey, just got offer number 3. It's at asking price, pretty solid.
Yeah.
And I just give them kind of like the basics. And a lot of times when you get multiple offers, there is a clear winner and there is a clear loser. And so I don't waste a bunch of time going through. I legally will present the offer and I'll tell them what it is. But I don't spend a whole lot of time going into who's the bank and who's the financing. I do that when it comes down to 2 offers or 3 offers that are really, really close.
Yeah.
And that's when we really start to get into the details of when do they want to close. Sometimes timing is everything. You know, you get the best offer in the world, but they need a couple months to close, or you get the best offer in the world and it's contingent upon them not only selling their home, but getting their home on the market. So there's a lot of different things that you got to look at. But I give them a lot of information ahead of time. I schedule a call with my sellers. I don't waste a bunch of time going through the offers that I know isn't worth it. I still will legally present them those offers, but we hone it down to a couple and then just kind of go from there.
Yeah, and that's why they hire us. You know, they hire us for expertise. I mean, a lot of sellers, they look at price, but they don't look at anything else.
Yeah.
You know, you can have an offer that's $10,000 over asking price, but you could tell by the way that they wrote their offer that they might be difficult to work with.
Yeah.
You know, whereas another one maybe isn't $10,000. Maybe it's at asking price, but they're offering to buy it as is, or they have that inspection cap in there.
Yeah.
So
I've got this story that I'll sometimes tell sellers where we put a house on the market and we got two offers. We were listed at 200,000, and one offer came in at 210,000, and they were going to do their home inspection, just a normal, good, clean offer, $10,000 over asking price. The second offer that came in was $20,000 over asking price, as is. And they said, well, that's no brainer, Adam. Like $10,000 more dollars, as is. Like we don't have to do anything. And I said, you got to be careful taking an as is offer, because a buyer can back out for any reason at all. There doesn't even have to be anything wrong with the house. They can just back out and they're guaranteed to get their earnest money back. And if you aren't familiar with earnest money that's out there, earnest money is not your deposit or your down payment. This is the skin in the game. So sometimes people call it the deposit, but it's the skin in the game that you're putting down to hold that property so the seller will allow us time to work through the transaction, the
your
inspections.
money's letting the seller know that you're serious.
Yeah. So we get these two offers. I tell them, guys, I think you should go with the one that's $10,000 over doing a normal home inspection. These sellers they did everything to the house. I mean, just totally made this house gorgeous, redid everything. Said, Adam, there's nothing wrong with our house. I think we want to go with the as is. I said, and it's $10,000 more dollars. Like looking at me like, Adam, what are you talking about? I said, okay. I mean, I always prefer a sure bet over more money. Every single day. I'll take that. I know that's the guarantee, and we're all going to get to the closing table. So in that situation, they went with the as is. And the buyers came in and did their home inspection. You still can do a home inspection in an as is situation. And got a mutual release. The agent called me up and said, Adam, just a couple things wrong with the house. And, the roof, we didn't realize the roof was that bad. So what are you talking about? Well, the sellers had went out of town. A hailstorm came through and just really beat up the front half of that roof. And they were going to back out. Well, a roof at the time on this house was only going to be about $10,000. So the seller said, no, don't walk away. We'll put a front half of the roof on, $5,000. Guys, I know you guys are, we did this as is. You guys have the ability to walk away, but we're going to fix it. Don't worry. I said, no, we appreciate it, but we're going to back out of the deal. And so they came back and said, fine, we'll put a whole brand new roof on. Nothing you'll ever have to worry about. It's $10,000. And they're still going to be basically netting what the other offer was going to get them. And the agent that was representing the buyer said, Adam, they fell out of love with the house.
Yeah.
They don't want to move forward with it. Well, the sellers didn't want to go back on the market. And they said, fine, you guys went $20,000 over asking price. We'll give you $20,000 back. Do whatever you want with it, or we'll put a brand new roof on and give you the $10,000 left to go put in your pocket. And they said, no, we're still not going to do it. Still didn't move forward. We couldn't pay those buyers to stay in the deal.
Yeah.
But if they would have taken the other offer, they would have made out just fine, closed on time, and still made $10,000 over asking price. Mm-hmm. So you got to be careful as a seller taking an as-is offer, and it's not always about the price; it's the terms.
Yeah, we saw a lot of that during the pandemic.
Yeah,
a lot of people making as-is offers just so they can get their offer accepted, and then getting cold feet and backing out because they had that as-is contingency in place. So, I think the best thing for a buyer, if you want to avoid the bidding war, just put your best foot forward and go out there and make the strongest offer that you're comfortable with offering or making. And if you get the house, awesome. If you don't, then you go find another one. And I tell everybody, don't fall in love with the house until you get the keys.
Yep.
And that's really important when you're buying a home. Emotions are flying. It's easy to get really emotional about a home and have things fall apart and you get devastated. And being able to take a little bit of emotion out of it will help you a lot. But yeah, make a good offer up front.
Well, and know where you can really be aggressive too. If the hardest time in Indiana to buy a house. Do you guys know the hardest time to buy a house in Indiana? It is from about the middle of February till the end of May. That is the hardest time to buy a house. Statistically, that's where you've got the least amount of homes for sale. It's not until you get into June, July, August, September where we see inventory spike up and a lot less buyers getting out of the market. One, they've either bought a house or they gave up or they decided to just keep renting. And that all kind of turns over around that May mark. Then after that, the game loosens up a little bit and you can get in there. So if you're buying a house between the middle of February and May, where it's the hardest time for a buyer because there's not a lot of houses to look at and you got all the buyers out there competing against each other, adjust your price range so that you can be competitive. Mm-hmm. Too many buyers are going out there trying to buy at the peak, and when you get into a bidding war, let's say your price range is $300,000 and the house is listed at $300,000, you got no room to be competitive.
Yeah.
So sometimes, I know it's hard, sometimes you got to back it down a little bit and start looking at homes that are $275,000 or $280,000 to give you that wiggle room to go up and still be competitive and then still be within your budget.
We need to come up with a different term for bidding. We need to coin a new term.
Bidding war. What would be another term for bidding war? Oh man,
It's got to sound cool.
bidding war sounds kind of cool.
It does sound pretty cool.
That's why it makes the headlines. You start talking about bidding wars, and that's what makes a good YouTube video. It makes a good LinkedIn post. You know.
Yeah.
I would also say this for you agents: stop telling everybody that you created a bidding war.
Because you didn't.
Because you didn't. And if you did, sometimes that says that maybe you either didn't know the market or the price of the home, or you just weren't serving your client the best. It's a great post. You know, got into another bidding war, won the bidding war. Be careful with that because you're going to scare off people and you're just creating anxiety in our real estate market that doesn't need to be there.
It's true. Yeah. Well, if anybody's out there shopping this spring, good luck. Hopefully you don't get into a bidding war as a buyer, as a seller. I hope you get into a bidding war because that's a good situation to be in. And let's see what happens this year. You know,
let's see what happens. This real estate market's poised to be one of the better years. You know, I was looking at some statistics where, you know, in a good, healthy market across the United States, there's about 5 million transactions per year. And for the last several years, we haven't even gotten over 4 million. Last year, the amount of sales that we had across the country was as low as we've seen since like 1993. Mm-hmm. So this year, I've been reading some statistics that we're going to be getting over 4 million. I hope that we get there. I think interest rates are a little bit more stable than where they've been. So we'll see if that helps out. But there's some strategies to know. Come up with a good game plan. Like we always say, line up your money first. Come up with a good game plan. Meet with a real estate professional. Yep. And for all of you agents that are out there, talk about your strategies. Lay it all out there. Show them how you negotiate for your sellers and for your buyers. Talk about your negotiation strategy. I think one way that I like to explain it is that, and I want them to know that this isn't me going out there and getting into an arm wrestling match with all these agents out there trying to strong arm them and to bring in their best offer. It is a very collaborative situation with me. Yeah. And when you can get the other agent on your side and start working together on putting together the best offer for both sides, that's a true win-win. And I think that's how real estate should be done.
I agree.